please identify everyone in the photo?
Suzanne Carlberg-Grassich, Director of Research at Chicago Recovery Alliance here and a public health professor at DePaul.
Greg Scott, Professor of Sociology at DePaul University and Director of Communications and Media, Chicago Recovery Alliance.
Garrett Shaw, Director of the Illinois Department of Public Health.
Ellie Cassidy, State Representative of the 14th District and lead House sponsor.
Don Harmon, Senate sponsor. Chris Nybo, State Senator, co-sponsor.
Great state of Illinois.
Certainly. Suzanne Carlberg-Grassich. It's a mouthful. I apologize for this. Carlberg is C-A-R-L-B-E-R-G hyphen R-A-C-I-C-H. First name Suzanne, S-U-Z-A-N-N-E. Again, I'm the Director of Research here at Chicago Recovery Alliance and Assistant Professor of Public Health at DePaul University. So on behalf of Chicago Recovery Alliance, is the audio good? Everybody good? Welcome. We are extraordinarily pleased to open our doors today to the signing of the Alternatives to Opioids Act. A week ago, we lost our founder and director, Dan Bigg. It's been an extraordinary week trying to deal with that. Members of the press, if you've ever reported on the opioid epidemic, it's a good chance you interacted with Dan and you remember him, as most people do. This is because he spent the better part of 25 years leading efforts nationally, in Chicago, internationally, to prevent opioid deaths and to empower people to improve life and health. He was actually the first person to put naloxone or Narcan in the hands of folks who were actively using drugs, and that was a phenomenal step in terms of mitigating opioid deaths here. But that step is not enough on its own to shift this crisis, and we need more options to make that happen. Dan's vision and ours as we head forward is to continue working toward any positive change in this epidemic, and that change involves engagement at the family level, at the community level, and at the government level. Today, we stand as witnesses of such positive change on the part of Illinois government. Thank you. Their work will offer another option to mitigate the opioid overdose epidemic by expanding access to evidence-based medicine in Illinois, medicine that does not cause fatal overdose. Further, it offers an opportunity to empower patients and providers to work together to explore all effective options to improve their health. In the spirit of our late director, whose tireless work to end overdose is reflected here today, I once again welcome you to the Chicago Recovery Alliance, and I'm pleased to bring Dr. Greg Scott to the stage, my colleague at DePaul University and CRA.
Hello, everyone. My name is Greg, G-R-E-G, Scott, S-C-O-T-T, Professor of Sociology, DePaul University, and Director of Media and Communications here at Chicago Recovery Alliance. We applaud Governor Rauner and our Illinois lawmakers for their development of this initiative. As a sociologist, I view the Opioid Alternative Pilot Program as a very necessary step in the direction of exercising more creativity in how we approach the prevention of premature death by opioid-related overdose. This initiative exemplifies the promotion of a more humane system of medical care. It also reflects the mantra of Chicago Recovery Alliance, which is actualized in everything we do, any positive change. Quite simply, this law revises the regulations around medical cannabis to make them more inclusive and more responsive to health and well-being for all Illinois residents. It's essential that our lawmakers continue seeking out ways to lower the threshold for engagement in compassionate and evidence-based care. The provisions of this new law expand, rather than restrict, the number of options available to Illinois residents affected by conditions for which opioids are conventionally prescribed. By removing background checks and fingerprinting requirements for all who might qualify for medical cannabis, this revision makes our existing substance control laws a little less punitive, a little less damaging, less discriminatory, and less stigmatizing. This, in itself, as I see it, is a positive development. Urgency is the appropriate mode of response to this opioid overdose crisis in Illinois. As we all know, last year, nearly 2,000 Illinoisans died of an overdose. That's the population of many of our beloved small towns. Now imagine if an entire population of one of these towns died in the span of a single year, we would be acting with far greater urgency than we have been historically. This legislation is much needed. It's excellent, it's innovative, but it's also not enough. We need more creative solutions, and we need them fast. It's my view as an activist and a research scholar that if we don't collectively commit ourselves to the creation of innovative laws like this one, then we're all complicit in every future death from opioids. Now, any piece of legislation is only as good as its implementation, so I would like to ask all parties involved in this act, and there are lots of them, to act with expedience, reason, and compassion to make it real. In particular, we implore physicians across the state to support and engage with this important life-saving initiative. Given the mounting toll of preventable deaths, we can afford nothing less. We all share this community that we call Illinois. This new law signifies a very welcome improvement to our standard of care for each other as fellow community members. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Lovely words and a call to action for all of us to keep moving ahead with more options. Next, I'd like to introduce Director of Illinois Department of Public Health, Dr. Nirav Shah.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nirav Shah, and I'm the Director of the Illinois Department of Public Health. Let me first begin by offering thanks to our colleagues here at the Chicago Recovery Alliance for hosting us this afternoon. The past week has visited a great loss upon CRA, as well as the substance abuse community across the state of Chicago, and certainly within the city. The passing of Dan Bigg, it leaves a hole that will be difficult to fill, and we very much share in your sorrow. Dan was a giant in the field, and certainly as someone who believed in harm reduction, he would have, we believe, supported this effort very vocally. Much like the work that Dan himself did, he would have been very much in favor of this work because of how much ahead of its time it was. I'm delighted to be here with the governor as well as the legislators with whom we have worked for the past several months on this piece of legislation. It is, in many respects, the hallmark of good government and something that we believe will help individuals across the state. Similarly, the number of new opioid prescriptions has continued a somewhat downward trend over the past several years. Nevertheless, despite those encouraging signs, the grave toll that the opioid crisis has exacted on citizens across Illinois means that we must seek alternative, innovative solutions that are grounded in harm reduction. 1 year ago, the state released its state opioid action plan. And one of the foundations, one of the pillars of that plan is a focus on prevention. Underlying that work on prevention are two key strategies. One focused on safer opioid prescribing, and the other focused on safer opioid use. Today's initiative fosters and furthers both of those goals. Early scientific research suggests that increasing access to medical cannabis may have positive impacts on the opioid crisis. In that regard, there are three key questions. The first is medical cannabis effective for pain? The second is, can it reduce opioid use? And the third is ultimately whether medical cannabis use will translate to fewer deaths. On all three questions, there are very positive signs. Not long ago, the National Academy of Science, in an authoritative report, stated, quote, "There is substantial evidence that cannabis is an effective treatment for chronic pain in adults." As to the second, can it reduce opioid use? Observational and epidemiological studies have found that the use of medical cannabis may be associated with a significant reduction in opioid use owing to the substitution of one for the other? And the third, ultimately, can it result in fewer deaths? Similarly, the early evidence is very encouraging. A study funded by the National Institute for Drug Abuse found a strong link between medical cannabis use and fewer opioid overdose deaths in certain states. When you consider all of this evidence in light of the strong addictive potential posed by opioids, an initiative like this, frankly, just makes sense. Given that addiction can start in just a matter of days following initiation of an opioid prescription, we understand that folks right now are hesitant to get an opioid prescription filled. The Opioid Alternative Pilot Program will expand treatment options for those suffering from pain. Mr. Big's work embraced novel solutions at every turn, even though in the early days they raised a lot of eyebrows around town. When CRA began needle exchange programs early on, it was revolutionary but met with a high degree of skepticism. Arguably, you could say the same for just about everything that Dan Big did. But when asked, the response was simple: any positive change. Today's initiative does that, and we echo that statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. That's exactly why we're here, right? To hear this, any positive change and movement forward. Hearing the plethora of evidence is really lovely for us all to be centered in as we move forward. And also to remember, in the spirit of Dan, the fact that we can be pioneers in this work and make things happen in Illinois and really help reduce opioid deaths. So next, I'd like to introduce Representative Kelly Cassidy.
Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Cassidy. That's Kelly, Cassidy, Cassidy. I'm the state representative from the 14th District and the lead sponsor in the House of Senate Bill 336. I want to also thank the folks from CRA for opening their doors and allowing us all to invade their space at this incredibly difficult time. So many people were so touched by Dan's work, myself included, and some of the earliest work I did around these issues was the result of meeting Dan and learning from him, and the reality of what we as a community have lost, what we as a movement have lost, cannot be overstated. And so thank you all to the CRA folks for continuing his work and continuing to allow me to partner with you in this work. Ultimately, what we have in front of us today is the result of an openness, a creativity, a willingness to hear each other and work together. And we need that more than ever. And I am grateful to all the folks that were involved in this bill from the very start. This was not easy. It took a lot of folks working together and staying focused on what we committed to at the start, which was finding a solution. We agreed on the problem. We had to find a path to a solution that we could agree on, and this bill represents that. This represents fundamentally putting the patients first. Every conversation we had, we talked about what it would mean for patients when we do that, when we pass this law. And I am very pleased that we've come up with the solution, that we've all come together with a huge bipartisan supermajority to pass this bill into law. And so I want to thank everyone that worked together on this, from Senator Harman and his colleagues in the Senate, my colleagues in the House, the folks from the Departments of Public Health and Revenue, who stayed at the table through some pretty challenging conversations to find solutions. It's proof that we can get it done when we start from a commitment to solution, and I'm really grateful. And fundamentally, we started from a commitment to the patients. And with that in mind, we've got a patient here today who can share how her life has been changed by access. And I will say, as someone who is a regular survivor of skin cancer surgery, the idea that I will have options moving forward is incredibly meaningful. It's always shocking to me at the end of my surgeries when I'm offered a ton of heavy-duty narcotics to help me manage the pain. And so the idea that there are options, that patients will be offered those options, is exactly why we're here today. The fact that we're going to level the playing field for the existing patients in the medical cannabis program is exactly why we're here today. But without further ado, Melissa, you want to come share your story? I'll stay here with you. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm an Illinois medical cannabis patient. I've been affected. I have interstitial cystitis, and I became a patient 3 years ago at the induction of the program. And being a patient, I have come off opioids with the support of cannabis. And I am a mother to a 6-year-old, very active 6-year-old. I coordinate the Midwest Cannabis Education Conference now to help others. It's given me my life back. So thank you so much for all you've done.
I think, do you want questions after, Governor? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Melissa, and thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Representative Cassidy. It occurs to me that the kind of cooperation and open dialogue we've had here in Illinois could be a good example nationally. Maybe we should show it off, okay? So next I'd like to invite Senator Don Harmon up to speak.
Good afternoon. I'm Don Harmon, D-O-N-H-A-R-M-O-N. I'm the Illinois Senate President Pro Tem and a Democrat from Oak Park. I want to thank Representative Cassidy not only for her sponsorship, but also for inviting Melissa up, because that really is the focus of this bill. It began about a year and a half ago when in the Senate Executive Committee, we heard testimony from a panel of patients who explained just how dramatically medical cannabis allowed them to reduce or altogether eliminate their use of opioids. And just as Melissa said, they talked about getting their lives back, being able to manage their condition without the crippling side effects of opioids. And so I began that effort in the Senate to try to pass a law that would give those patients an alternative, and I'm so glad that that has come to fruition today. Governor, I'm going to officially get out of the business of predicting which of my bills you're going to sign and which ones you're going to veto, but I am very grateful that you are signing this, because you are giving license to a lot of people across the state of Illinois to get their lives back, to get their families back, to manage their medical condition with a medical solution that is less damaging than opioids. So I'm looking forward to the bill becoming law. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for reminding us who this is about, the patients. I'd like to invite Senator Chris Nybo.
Hello, my name is Chris Nybo, C-H-R-I-S-N-Y-B-O. I serve with Senator Harmon. I'm a state senator from the 24th District. My involvement with this monumental bill began, as Senator Harmon alluded to, when it came back to the Executive Committee. I serve as the spokesperson for our caucus, the Republican caucus, on the Executive Committee. And a lot has been said about how helpful this bill will be, and I agree with those sentiments. But I do want to take a moment just to applaud the efforts of how we arrived here today. Senator Harmon and Representative Cassidy had a bill. There were some concerns from Governor Rauner, Director Shaw, and the Department of Public Health, and all of us spent several months listening to each other, addressing those concerns, and getting to a final product. I'm here because I'm the co-sponsor of the amendment that first signified that DPH and Senator Harmon, Representative Cassidy, had come to an agreement. So I think it's wonderful the process in which this bill unfolded and became law. I applaud Senator Harmon and Representative Cassidy. And in particular, I really want to compliment and thank Governor Rauner and his administration, particularly DPH in this instance, for their willingness to listen and eagerness to try to find some solution that worked to everybody and made a difference. So Governor Rauner, thank you for your leadership in particular on this issue and the opioid crisis in general. Thank you.
Just to echo an appreciation for everyone who worked on this and for Governor Rauner for coming out to sign it. And I think it's your turn at the microphone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today, we take a major step forward to improve the quality of life and the health for the people of Illinois. Today, we create another very important tool in our chest of options to battle the opioid epidemic. Opioid use disorder is taking lives in Illinois, thousands of lives. Opioid use disorder is destroying families across our state and across the country. We've got to do everything we can to stop this vicious epidemic. And today, I'm proud to sign a bill that helps us stop this epidemic. We are now creating an option, an alternative to opioid prescription that creates an option for patients, like you heard from earlier, heroic patients. It's hard to come and stand in front of cameras and talk about personal challenges. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you. Today, we create an option for our physicians that is less addictive, less disruptive, and does not directly lead to so many overdose deaths. Medical cannabis creates an opportunity to treat pain in a less intrusive, less destructive way than opioids. This creates an option to save lives, prevent pain, treat pain, but in a way that does not lead to the destructive addiction of opioids. This bill is a good step. I'd like to thank members of the General Assembly who passed this legislation on a bipartisan basis. I'd like to thank everyone who's worked together. This was not easy to get done. There are many different points of view on these issues. We came together, we saw a problem, we solved it, and we took a major step forward. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I will now sign this very good, very important piece of legislation.
Proposed expanding the program.
Let's come forward by the microphone and I'll answer questions. Sure.
Could you address, previously you have been reluctant to expand the medical marijuana program and been opposed to legalization. Why is this different? Is it because the election is coming up?
I can say that we've done a lot of homework for months on this issue. You are correct. I am very much opposed to legalizing recreational marijuana, but it's clear from the research, and I prefer to focus on evidence and research results. It's clear that medical cannabis treats pain effectively, and it is less addictive and less disruptive than opioids. Creating that option is an important step forward to improve health quality, and that's why I decided to sign the bill. Could you speak up? The fans are loud. I have talked with patients, I've talked with physicians, I've talked with medical experts, and I rely very much. We have an outstanding director of public health, one of the best in the country. He's done a tremendous amount of work on these issues. We've done a lot of work, and I think we came to a good conclusion.
However, I know that you have taken and signed many laws even recently having to do with the opioid crisis, but when it comes to marijuana itself and the medical marijuana program, are you now going to be open to including any other maladies or diseases within the scope of that, or are you looking to, in general, make any changes going forward with Illinois marijuana law?
So medical marijuana in Illinois was the law before I became governor. We've implemented the law, and our team has had constant review of the law to see whether certain treatments, certain other prescriptions would be appropriate to add to what is legally permissible in the state of Illinois. And we have added a number over 3.5 years. We'll constantly evaluate the results of research, the results of patients' improvement in health, and we'll make decisions as appropriate. And it's very possible there could be additional expansions to the program.
So nothing on the horizon for you right now?
Nothing that I'll announce today.
And then can you also address, a lot of physicians have been wary of participating in the program. I know Illinois has changed it from to try and give a little bit more leeway to physicians. But what do you have to say to doctors that say, you know, this is still against the federal law, I don't want to get involved in that? Why should they participate, or should they?
Well, each physician will follow their own conscience, and I think that's appropriate. It is legal in Illinois. It is not legal at the federal level. The dynamic with marijuana is obviously very much in flux in many states and across the country, and certainly at the federal level. We have been doing homework here to represent the people of Illinois and try to provide healthcare options that are high quality and deliver good results for the people. That's what I care most about. The issue of marijuana and its legality and the fact that it's illegal at the federal level, it's a big issue. There are many in Illinois who've advocated to make recreational use legal. I personally have been doing research on this. Our team has been doing research on it. I think one of the most important people we can talk to is the governor of Colorado. I've personally spoken to him about this. Colorado legalized marijuana quite a few years ago. They have direct experience. And his advice to me was, Governor, don't legalize it at this point. Study what's happening here. It ain't all roses. There are a lot of issues. Addiction is up, DUIs are up, absenteeism up, evidence of the active chemicals in marijuana in middle schoolers much more than in the past. Many challenges, many issues, and their advice was go slow, follow the results, and frankly, when you look at the tax revenue, some people have said, well, let's use it as a way to get tax revenue. Well, if you look at the cost to society, cost of healthcare with the addiction problems that can result from it, the cost-benefit analysis is not clear, and that's the advice that we've been getting from Colorado. Yeah, so I'll ask the doctor, Dr. Shah, to comment on that. What I have read is that there is clear statistical evidence that opioid deaths are reduced in communities where medical cannabis is available to treat pain, and that opioid prescriptions are cut by almost 15% in communities where medical cannabis is available. That's what I've learned. I'll ask the doctor to comment.
Thank you, sir. That's what the governor said is entirely correct. As we analyze this issue, there are 3 questions. Is it effective for pain? Can it reduce opioid use? And ultimately, can it reduce deaths? As I mentioned, there are positive signs on that horizon for all 3 of those questions. To give you some of the numbers, just last year in Illinois, there were roughly 2.3 million individuals across the state who were prescribed an opioid. That's over 5 million prescriptions. If only a tiny fraction of those individuals utilizes this alternative program and finds comfort and support through it, and if even a tiny fraction of those individuals is able to abandon or reduce opioids, and a tiny fraction of those individuals is able to have their lives saved, we anticipate significant savings of life. It's difficult to predict what the numbers will look like, but we're prepared and we're encouraging folks to use it.
I had spoken with him, but I really did not know him well. I just know him through conversations with the team here. He was an extraordinary leader, hugely respected, deeply loved by those in the community who are dealing with mental health and trying to improve services for those who are suffering from use disorders. And it's clear that he was a towering leader who will be missed. Let's stay on this with anybody first, and then we'll take a short break, and then you guys can launch away. I'm happy to.
Sure, it's Melissa Hallbeck, Melissahallbeck. I'm sorry? So I have interstitial cystitis, and that's basically abdominal pain, a lot of pain associated with that. I know that I make my own topical cannabis oil that has no psychoactive effect to it whatsoever that I put on. All the difference in the world. It's given me my life back. I'm active again with my 6-year-old son. You know, I'm doing all the activities I used to. I'm putting myself back through school with academic scholarships, so it's made a huge difference. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I needed them every day, you know.
Are you comfortable sharing how much you were taking?
Yeah, I was taking 4 Norcos a day at 10 milligrams a day. So 40 milligrams of Norco that I came off.
And how long?
About 2 years, I'd say.
And you got onto that through prescription, that was all through prescription prescribed to you by a doctor?
It was. After multiple surgeries, I started pain medications and then had to increase the dosage as the pain got worse. And then once I found cannabis, I was able to kind of taper back off those. And it took me a little while, but yeah, it's been years now since I've been taking them.
How many years have you been using marijuana? Changed the opioid?
What's that?
What quit the opioid and started using the cannabis as the alternative?
Well, it was a slow, you know, it was titrating off the, it was titrating onto the cannabis and off the, you know, the opioids, and it's been well over a year now since I've been completely off those and on the cannabis.
Representative Cassidy, could you just briefly give us an update on where your legislation to fully legalize recreational marijuana is? I know usually you said, yeah, it's going to take a while. So what is the timeline?
Well, that's not entirely clear. We have significant bipartisan support in both chambers. We have been working and learning from the experience in other states, and we expect that early next session we'll introduce a new version. We may introduce it sooner if it's done. We have spent, Senator Staines and I have spent the last 2 years now, I guess, meeting with stakeholders, holding public hearings, traveling to states with more experience than we've had, meeting with leaders in those states and learning from their mistakes. And the new bill will reflect all of that input.
What have you learned from Colorado?
Well, to be perfectly honest, a lot of the Colorado data that we have actually directly contradicts. Colorado, I think last week, released data showing that DUIs are down. Teen use is down in Colorado and in other states. And what we've most significantly learned, and Colorado has been a great teacher because they did it not via legislation, not through a collaborative process, but via a ballot initiative. We have been able to hear them say, we wish that we had done better public education on the use of edibles. We wish we had regulated the dosage better. We wish that we had been able to mandate public information and public education campaigns. And so those things will be reflected in the new bill to reflect those things that were hiccups at the beginning of Colorado's process.
You know, one of the concerns is how there's so much THC in some of this stuff, like almost 100% THC. Is there any thought to addressing that either in medical marijuana or recreation?
So what has happened in most of those states that have a more expansive program, it's about making sure that labeling is clear, that people understand what they're taking in when they're taking it in. Limiting the dosage levels is challenging because for folks with significant medical concerns, they need access to that higher potency product. In some states, those higher potencies are limited to the medical program, and so that's an option that folks look at. So this actually is completely at the doctor's discretion. If a doctor would prescribe you an opioid for the condition that he's treating you for or she's treating you for, we worked closely with the doctors actually in crafting the language around this to make sure they were comfortable with it. If you would be eligible for an opioid prescription, whether we're talking about, post-surgical pain or an underlying condition that causes significant pain, whether it's short-term or long-term treatment, that doctor can talk to you about this option and make this option available to you instead of, or in addition to, in those cases where somebody needs to titrate. That's a very good example.
I am aware that there have been some licenses not yet issued.
Are there plans to open those up back for application?
There's a process. Doctor, do you want to talk? Okay. So there is a process. I know that it's constantly being evaluated. Why don't I get you with the right people in our team? I'm not sure of the latest. We can get you the latest information. Anyone else? Okay, let me ask one point, because this could be a major topic for you all in the media, this whole issue around cannabis going forward. This could be a big issue. I've obviously made my positions clear. The one thing I'll ask all of you, what I've learned the hard way in this job, and I've learned many lessons, but one of the things is statistics get used in ways to prove points, and you can take the same broad set of data, pick your start point and your end point, and make whatever argument you want to make. We've got to talk to the people who've lived it, and listen to their experiences firsthand at every level, in every regard, and try to get at the truth. Most important thing, keep the people of Illinois safe and healthy, especially our young people. And as we debate these issues and analyze them, your help at getting the truth out will be much appreciated. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Good job.
Yeah, I'm just gonna move it up closer. What?
If any of you would like footage of the outreach van, we can also arrange that afterwards.
Is this good? All right, everyone ready?
Okay, you were going first.
The thought process behind vetoing the immigration bill says B34, 35, and it's B3103. And what has changed in your mind since last year when you signed the Trust Act?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So nothing's changed for me. Nothing's changed. And that's why it's important that we have this conversation about immigration. I am very pro-legal immigration. I want to expand and support and streamline legal immigration. And I'm very much against illegal immigration. And I believe we should end illegal immigration. And we should not do things that support illegal immigration. I signed a bill called the Trust Act more than a year ago because it was requested by local police officers. They encouraged me to sign it. It was a public safety bill more than an immigration bill. And it basically codified what federal judges have ruled we need to do in terms of process, where we in Illinois and frankly across the country, no one should be arrested and held for immigration issues, solely for immigration issues, unless there's a proper federal warrant or detention order. That's the law. That's what the federal judges have said, and that's what we put into law. That I signed. And it does not make Illinois a sanctuary, as was falsely spun over the past year. The bills, there were really four, but sort of five immigration-related bills passed the General Assembly this session. We analyzed all of them. I signed 2 of them. I thought they were reasonable. 3 of them I vetoed. One tied the hands of police officers and forced them to file applications to create visas, request a visa for someone who would otherwise face deportation but is claiming some sort of crime was committed, and even if they're not needed for testimony or for investigation of a crime, they had to file to get a visa to defer deportment. I thought that was improper, tied police hands, and restricted the immigration management process. So I vetoed that bill.
Are you referring to the Voices Act? The Voices Act is the one that allows the police departments to report any case in a 90-day space of time. I was wondering, I mean, do you really think that it has to do with people asking for immigration?
The concern, yes, the concern was it required, our team's reading of it, my reading of it is, it required police departments to apply for a special visa for an individual.
No, they would just report it to the federal government. The people reporting the crime are the ones who have to apply for a visa after that.
So my reading and my team's reading, and we can talk more. I need to answer a lot of questions. Happy to talk to you more. These immigration issues are very important. I want to make sure that Illinois is a welcoming state, that we support legal immigration, and that we do not support illegal immigration. And that's how we've managed the bill process. I'd love to talk to you some more about it.
You also had another veto.
Well, so tobacco is a legal product that some people choose to use. We all may have our opinions about it. We know that it has some health risks. Alcohol has health risks. Other products have health risks. People choose it. It's legal. And adults in our society are made or the age of 18 is adulthood. And 18-year-olds serve in our military. 18-year-olds vote, and the states around us do not require someone to be older to purchase tobacco products, and there is no reason that making it required to be 21 would somehow really significantly decrease smoking among 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. So from a health point of view, from a freedom of choice, from a treatment of adults to make their own decisions, as well as from an economic point of view, to your point, that's part of it as well. There would be an issue where many people, 18, 19, 21-year-olds, would drive however far, go to Wisconsin, go to Indiana, and purchase a perfectly legal product that they may choose to use. So that's why I vetoed the bill. Yes. Well, 18-year-olds are adults in our society, and they can choose. They choose to vote. They choose to serve in our military, and they're our heroes when they choose to do that. If they choose to use a particular tobacco product, that's their freedom of choice. I'm sorry?
You vetoed the, you mandatorily vetoed the
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm wondering, did you do that because there are these lawsuits pending that are alleging neglect against the state? Do you disagree with that?
I believe, well, I disagree with your premise of your question. I think you're correct. That bill probably passed because of the Quincy tragedy where the pipes got infected. But really that bill applies to all circumstances for liabilities and lawsuits. We in Illinois had not updated our thresholds financially for many years. I don't know, but it's been a long time. We've been at $100,000 per incident or per case. We were overdue to adjust that relative to inflation, relative to cost of living, relative to dynamics in our society. What we did was study what other states have for those caps on liability and lawsuits. There's a broad range. 100,000 was towards the low end, and we were comfortable increasing it. 300,000 is in the middle, maybe upper middle, but in the middle. There are some higher, there's some lower. We thought 300,000 was a prudent number, compensating individuals in lawsuits, but also keeping the cost such that we wouldn't suffer a massive outflow of further businesses and job losses like we've been experiencing.
Last question.
Oh, Sterigenics.
What's the EPA doing, the Illinois
Yeah, so this is a really important issue. Let's talk about this because I think the federal government created a little bit of a panic inappropriately. Their communication was not very effective. This product, it's called ethylene oxide. I know a little bit about it, ETO. It's been used for many, many years by many organizations to sterilize things, especially sterilized medical equipment. In Illinois, we have 3 large facilities that use ETO to sterilize medical equipment. One of them is in Willowbrook. The others, I think, are in Waukegan and in McCook. And then there are dozens of hospitals in the state of Illinois that use ETO to sterilize their medical equipment. This is a product that's in wide use. And some amount of it escapes into the environment or the atmosphere as part of the process. The EPA changed their designation for this product. It's been in long time use, but they changed the designation at the end of 2016 from possibly cancer-causing in people to cancer-causing in people. So they shifted the designation about a year and a half ago. And now the federal government is in process of going and reviewing the use of the material in facilities all around the country. And this is not an Illinois problem. This is a nationwide. This is used everywhere. There are facilities that are releasing this material as part of their systems in every state. So the federal government is doing their process. They started with this company in Willowbrook. They're going to be reviewing the processes for all the companies, is my understanding. They determined that maybe it would be good to try to reduce the level of emissions. I believe that company took the actions themselves, put in control equipment to reduce the emissions, and the federal government made it clear even before the controls were put in, the emission levels were 1,000 times less than the concerning levels that were being experienced by workers in industrial environments. So this is, and the federal government, I wish they said it earlier, but they said it, I guess, in the last day or two. They put out a letter. This is not an emergency. This is not a public health immediate crisis. This is something we're managing, a product that needs to be managed carefully, and we're going to try to reduce emissions over time. And my understanding is that that particular company has followed all the regulations, done the proper procedures, and I hope the ones in Waukegan and McCook are doing likewise. We're going to work at the Illinois EPA and the Department of Public Health. We will be working with the federal government to monitor this whole situation in the state and try to reduce exposures from this as much as we can.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Can you say it one more time?
Ethylene oxide. Ethylene oxide.